I am currently 38 weeks pregnant, still pregnant, and believing for a supernatural, miraculous, pain-free, and quick birth. Two of the biggest things that stood out to me in the Word that really helped me is God being the deliverer, and then that verse, like that tiny little snippet in Exodus of the story of Moses where it says the Hebrew women would birth before the midwives would even get there, or they would give birth before the midwives got there. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that's awesome. So yeah, those are the two verses that my heart kind of just set on. And then the 3 books that I read that really impacted my faith. Jackie Mays, it's the one from the 80s. It's called Supernatural Childbirth. It's a really thin book. I got that one. I read that one first. Then I had Home Birth on My Own Terms, on Your Own Terms, by a midwife. So it's like an informational, it's very detail heavy for women that are interested in home birthing alone and doing all of their prenatal care and all of their birthing alone, essentially. So it's very education heavy, rightfully so, because obviously I wouldn't be planning on doing the type of home birth I'm doing without educating myself, so that would be really stupid. And then the 3rd book was Nissa Andrews' pain-free, supernatural pain-free birth. I'm gonna have all of them probably pop up here or in the link below. So yeah, those are the 3 resources that I leaned on heavily and only opened my heart up to those books. So a big theme throughout my pregnancy with the Lord was to be very scrupulous about what I took in and what I didn't allow in. For example, the Flow app. It's an app that's used to track your menstrual cycle, and it also has a pregnancy mode when you actually get pregnant. So I used it strictly to follow along with my pregnancy week by week, but that is it. I would not advise anyone who's believing for a supernatural birth to take any advice from something like a Flow app, because the standards that they are pulling from, the medical standards, they just don't apply to a pregnancy like this. And they, in my opinion, use facts that are very fear-based. So you're kind of injecting your pregnancy with things that aren't even there potentially in the first place, but you start looking for them and then you see them and then you get worried, and then fear enters in through something like that. So another resource that I think should be heavily regulated is YouTube. First off, I love YouTube. I think, in my opinion, the home birth community and the natural birth community is the best on YouTube. However, it is an open platform, so you do have to regulate to a certain degree. And all I'll say about that is you just need to consider the source and get a little bit familiar with the language of the birthing industry and find out who is behind this video and what their motives are and what their doctrines are. I would advise I take in information very hesitantly. I'm not saying don't watch videos. I'm a student, so I click on everything because I'm very secure in what I am convicted about. But I would be very hesitant to recommend hypnobirthing and OBGYN, people with credited medical degrees. I wouldn't even refer informational videos about them. I'm going to give it an example. You watch a video on YouTube about an OBGYN He was giving you birthing tips and pregnancy tips and how to prepare for birth and what is possible and what is not possible. But when you look at their stats, they do 90% cesareans in hospital. And it's like, wait, you're telling me the parameters of what's possible with birth, but you're not even familiar with natural birth or vaginal birth, whatever. So that's my example of regulating what you take in on YouTube. I was communing with the Holy Spirit on what videos to watch and not to watch. And just to give like a practical, I'm not like praying like, God, should I watch this video? It's just like a feeling. And I know not everybody interacts with God this way, but it was just like, is this necessary? Is this unnecessary? And a feeling like there would be something that would be interesting, like 14 pregnancy myths, and I would just have a thought come up in my head, that's unnecessary, and I wouldn't feel like watching it. So I would follow like those inclinations, and to me, I was being led by the Holy Spirit, and in what to watch, what not to watch, what information to take, what information not to take. And then the third thing that I regulated was like who to talk to about all of this stuff. I was learning from her comment that you can't keep an open forum basically for everyone, because pregnancy and birth is such an individual experience, where when you tell people you're pregnant, they just share their experience or sometimes their fears or their genuinely negative birth experiences, which are so valid. But when you're pregnant and you're believing for supernatural things, you want to protect your faith a little bit. So that was another thing. I didn't have an open forum like, yeah, I'm pregnant, and asking everybody about their experience, because people just naturally, they want to share because they care about you and they don't want you to experience anything bad. It's out of love. But when you're moving in faith, it's fear to the thing that you're pursuing. I think one thing I can share in case I end up putting this in the video is the biggest reason for this, whether things go the way that I'm believing or not, is just believing that Jesus means what he says, and he just did everything on the cross, and his blood is enough. And that, that's one thing I'll say, is not until getting pregnant did the revelation of what the blood can do and the cross, what that means for me. Not until I was pregnant did I have a deepening of that. And I have a testimony that is like darkness and drugs and experiencing the blood and the cross, really, because you can't switch a life like that without that. But not until being pregnant was it like, wow, Jesus took my pain away. Even this, he cursed the curse, and his blood is enough. He who knew no sin became sin so that I would become the righteousness of Christ. And that's the reason I'm able to even ask and believe the Lord for something like this. Like, I'm not special. I don't have like superpowers. I'm just having access to what God said. Like he says about him, his words about himself, like these are trustworthy and true. Like write these things down. And I've found that in the Lord. He's the only one trustworthy, and he's the only one true. And so I've been encountered in my pregnancy with that as well. I was shocked that we got pregnant so quickly on the first go. And oh, hummingbird, of course, came up right in front of my face. That Wyatt and I got pregnant so quickly, and I think I was just in like, what is happening mental state. So I felt Holy Spirit tell me, hey, with your pregnancy, let's talk about your birth and how this is going to go. And he told me, I'm not going to leave you in this pregnancy, and I'm not going to leave you in the birth. And, you know, when you hear his words directly to you, they just hit you differently, right? It's like, it's an encounter with God. And I just began to weep, and I believed it. Just with the books, with everything. Books, positioning, heart stuff, resources, content, learning, information. It was all led by God. It was perfect. I couldn't have made it up. And I'm just really thankful. And he's faithful to do that. Like, God is faithful to deliver. And the wombs of his people are not barren. And he's creating, right, this life that he knows he called, and he's going to be faithful to deliver him too. Yeah, simply put, that's the reason behind the faith, or the process behind the faith. So, we'll see.